Hello, everyone. Hello, Las Cruces. I am Officer Charlie Velasco, and my partner is
Officer Paul's Community Outreach Unit.
Welcome. Welcome to our Bridging the Badge initiative and our first Bridging the Badge meeting. Before we get into our meeting and our conversations, we're going to go over some quick guidelines, which you could also find on the chat.
So, Bridging a Badge communication guidelines. We want to pretty much keep an inclusive environment. All comments are welcome, and like I said, just be courteous of one another. Treat this like it's a face-to-face interaction.
The chat will be an open chat to everyone, and you can communicate with us, and you can also communicate with our co-hosts who will be participants in the chat. Just please, if you want a follow-up or you want to contact us directly with your information, do a direct chat to one of the co-hosts or the host of the meeting.
And respectful interactions. Be curious, listen, learn, seek understanding. So the whole objective of this is to present the community as a whole a better understanding of what we do, not only as a community outreach unit, but as Las Cruces Police Department.
Also, to ensure a productive discussion, please stay on topic, especially when we go into our discussion of trainings and specific information. It's best to stay on topic, and we can answer your questions appropriately.
And just to reiterate what I said earlier, just be kind. Online etiquette, treat it like it's face-to-face.
Yeah, before we go too far into Bridging the Badge and what it's going to be, let's introduce ourselves. So I'm Officer Charlie Velasco. I've been with the Las Cruces Police Department since 2014. That's when I went through the academy. Through my career, I was mainly on patrol. I spent the first 4 years on graves, following by 3 years on day shift, and I finished out my patrol career on swing shift, which was a lot of fun. I loved it. I got to experience the city through all different times and all different type of call volumes. As of May, I was transitioning over to community outreach, where now I'm the community liaison officer. Prior to becoming a police officer, I was going to school to get my college degree in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Moved down here. I fell in love with Las Cruces. So how about yourself, Officer Paulos?
Well, I came in a year before you, so going on about 10 years. Started off patrol, day shift, and remainder of my time on patrol I spent on swing shift, which I feel is the best shift. But we won't go there. That's for another time. Prior to that, I was working as a manager for a food service distribution center. Did some time in the military, a couple deployments. Also went to school, have a bachelor's in hotel restaurant management. Minor business administration. So, and now I'm a police officer.
Awesome.
Right?
Yeah. What made you want to become a police officer?
Well, the easy answer is that both my family members are retired LCPD officers. But the fact of the matter is, it was just, I felt like I wanted to be that change that I saw.
Awesome. So now we're going to cover some of our Bridging the Badge initiative. This is a new program that we're helping launch, right? It's new for LCPD, it's our first one. And it's meant to be a monthly Zoom meeting to open up discussion between the community and the police department. So what are some of the things that we have in store for people?
Some of the things, well, we're gonna bring not just the different departments within the agency to present what they do and what they can do as a service to the community, but also the outside social elements that assist us with what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so what Officer Paul is saying, we want to bring in resources to come present, first to go over issues, go over concerns, but also offer resources. I know when I started, there's a lot of resources here in Las Cruces that I just had no idea of. And when I covered my patrol career, there's resources I knew that were available at night. And then I went to day shift and I knew there was more resources during the day. So we want to bridge that gap between the community and ourselves. If you do have any questions or any topics or any discussions that you would like to see, please, by all means, either send us an email or put it on the chat and we'll be monitoring that as well.
Very true.
So we're going to cover a little bit as well as community outreach. So community outreach is a unit that both Officer Paulos and I belong to. Officer Paulos, you've been in the unit longer than I have. What is community outreach?
Community outreach, well, it's a proactive approach to resolving crime within the community. And we utilize the community itself, actually. Like, they're a great source of information. And they're the ones that know what is going on, what's happening, different offenders, maybe criminal activity that's taking place. They're going to have that information. And that's where we reach out to them. We get that information and we use it to pretty much improve the quality of life within the given communities or the areas, the problematic areas for the most part. So we just take a different approach to solving crime. We try to get to the root of it rather than just,
Okay. What does community outreach unit entail? Like, who's in it?
So right now we got about 6 members. Each member has an assigned district in which they work. Not to say that we are restricted to those districts, because we find each other helping one another out,
right.
Especially when we got the bigger projects and the bigger issues. So.
Yeah, and then we also have civilians working with us. Who are the civilians that work under community outreach?
David and Grace.
Yeah, and they encompass LCPD cares. They have training in social works. They have training resources in the city, and they help us go out and just make that different connection with them as well. Officer Paulos, if a member of the community has a question of what is a community outreach officer, right? What would you say is the biggest difference between community outreach officers and patrol officers?
Definitely, we're not, well, how we like to say, tied down by the radio. We're not having to respond to patrol calls. Not to say that we don't take them, but we can put a little more time and emphasis on that project or that call itself. Patrol, they're going to take the call for service, and they're going to take the higher priorities, and it's pretty much like a triage system as far as with the Mesilla Valley Regional Dispatch. So that's where we can come in and like help them out. If there's some like further investigation needs to occur, then we can step in and go in.
Right. In essence, patrol is the backbone of the Las Cruces Police Department.
100%.
They take care of all the calls. If you call an emergency and you need somebody there, patrol is always out driving around, getting ready to go to these calls, right? And in community outreach, we don't have the time restraint, which is to say that we can do follow-ups, we can offer different type of projects that we do, or we have 2 different type of projects, right? We have an impact project and a pop project. What would be the difference, Officer Paulos?
Well, pop project and pop project, one's going to be a little more lengthier. So the pop project, which is a problem-oriented policing, that's going to be anywhere from like a month to a year. It all depends on what the situation is and what it encompasses, as opposed to an impact project will be anywhere from maybe a couple of days to a week, or like maybe 2 weeks. So an example of that would be like, we have a lot of speeding in like school zones. We'll reach out to traffic or even ourselves, put a radar and try to address that issue.
Right. And that's leading up to our first presentation for Bridging the Badge. We wanted to take the time to highlight one of our officers, Officer Felipe Hernandez, and he's going to cover one of his pop projects, you called it?
Yes.
So we're going to bring in Officer Felipe Hernandez, and he's going to cover one of his pop projects that he's taken on.
Welcome back, everyone. Back with Officer Felipe Hernandez. He's one of our community outreach officers, and he's going to go over the project he's currently working. It's pretty near and dear to his heart.
Hello, like my partner said, my name is Officer Felipe Hernandez. I'm with the Las Cruces Police Department. A little bit about myself. I've been here for going on 9 years. Before that, I worked at the district courthouse. Before that, I worked at the jail. Before that, I was a deputy sheriff up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Before that, I joined the military in 2001 to about 2003. Decided to move back home where I grew up at. So today we'll be talking about one of my projects, as you mentioned, the Mesilla Valley Public Housing. Like Officer Paulos says, I had family grow up there. I grew up in there, and one of the things that I wanted to bring to the Mesilla Valley Public Housing is something that I felt that I didn't really feel when I was growing up in there was quality of life, being able to walk out and about, feeling comfortable just walking out of your residence and not really afraid of, what's around the corner or, what's going to happen in your neighborhood, So
it's got to be rough.
Yeah, and so this project, again, it's I guess you can say it's near and dear to me, but I believe in quality of life or a lot of these residents that live in the Mesilla Valley public housing community. So we'll start to put up the PowerPoint. So again, the Mesilla Valley Public Housing is a low-income Section 8 housing. There is roughly about 7 to 8 different public housing that is given by the Mesilla Valley Public Housing Authority. And I'm going to highlight some of the ones that I've been working on that I've kind of seen that were kind of issues when I first started. Again, when I first started I started off on graveyards, 5 years. We go to a lot of these calls to the same houses over and over again. And again, me growing up public housing, I know there's rules and regulations that one has to follow. And when we're getting dispatched to the same house for the same issue, such as drive-bys or stolen vehicles, I just felt like something wasn't being monitored. So that's why I started this project right here.
So pretty much the intel that you obtained while on patrol is what kind of led you towards this. And well, that and your growing up in these areas.
Right. Yeah. I always, like I said, we go to the same call, same house for maybe not just the same call, but different calls. And I'm wondering, like, this is a crime being committed on public housing property. And again, there's rules and regulations that one needs to follow when they sign the contract. And, you know, again, I'm wondering, why is this individual bringing mayhem, so to speak, in the public housing area and destroying quality of life for the residents around them? You know? Okay. So next slide, please. So again, I kind of touched on this a little bit. What kind of created this project? You know, again, we're going to the same residents, constant domestics, and I'm not talking just arguments. You know, I'm talking full disturbances. You know, broken windows. You know, people just throwing stuff at each other, or maybe even shooting at each other. Shootings, drive-by shootings going on in public housing, drug activities, squatting in vacant residencies. No, when I say squatting, I'm talking about public housing has quite a few residents that are actually vacant. They're getting ready to have people move into them. Well, you'll have somebody who is not on the list to be put into public housing just either walk in or break into this residence, and they will live there for about 2 to 3 weeks until public housing is getting ready to move somebody in, and that's when they discover these people just living there. Okay. Total rent free, you know. 9 times out of 10, the whole place is just damaged, you know. Again,
unfortunate.
It is, you know. And again, you have residents who are afraid of their surroundings, they don't want to come out. And whole thing of mine was quality of life for the residents living there. You know, like I said, there is a stigma that comes with living in public housing. You know, we've seen it in movies. I've seen it growing up, is that people say it's the projects. So they just assume bad crime happens in the projects, and that's just kind of how it is.
There's nothing you do about it. Right?
Yeah, really nothing you can do about it. But
it is what it is, pretty much.
Pretty much, but there are steps, which is why I came up with this project. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So what I needed to understand was I needed to understand how public housing works. So, you know, what is it that, who monitors everything that's going on? So I went and had a meeting with the deputy director as well as staff for public housing. And, you know, I'd ask them, you know, who's monitoring the public housing across the city? Because again, it just isn't just in one area. We have it over by Lynn, which is Police District 4. You have it over off of Bomber, Berkeley Court, which is Police District 3. Tres Árboles, which is in City District 2. 3350 Oak Street, which is over in District 3 as well. So they're kind of all over the place, you know. So I'm wondering who's monitoring all these rules and regulations that are being broken. You know, who's doing the follow-up on these shootings or these domestics or these vandalisms or harassment or trespassings, you know. So we wanted to find out what's going on there. And also who's enforcing the rules and regulations that, again, are being broken on this property.
It kind of sounds like there wasn't any monitoring of this. You're kind of the eyes and ears.
Well, it wasn't that there wasn't any monitoring. It was more of they didn't know about it. You know, again, they, you know, I don't want to say that they're doing a bad job, but it's just, it's hard when, again, this is a community where people aren't used to normally telling on one another, you know. So if their neighbor's having a domestic, a lot of people have that, well, it's really not my problem mentality, and just kind of goes by the wayside, you know. So a lot of calls got swept under the rug because of this, which is why a lot of times public housing didn't really know what was going on around their public housing communities. So next slide, please. So one of the things that, again, I felt I had to do was because, again, growing up in these communities was we need to build that trust between the residents of public housing as well as law enforcement. So you mentioned earlier, patrol's the backbone of our department, and they do a great job. But when they show up, everybody associate the cops are here, something bad happened, and they just leave it at that, you know. So what I decided to do, and you've assisted me a few times on this as well as other outreach officers, is we would get down and walk these areas, you know, walk it on foot 3 to 4 times a day. We'd even ride our bike 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and just show our face there so that we kind of be more approachable instead of just driving around the vehicle. We're a little more approachable so people can actually come up to us and tell us issues that are going on in the community. Because like you said earlier, that's where we get a lot of our intel from, is the people who live there, and they're a wealth of knowledge on what's actually going on in the communities.
I mean, it is their place, it's where they're living.
Yeah.
And I feel like that increased, I guess, felt presence is what kind of ignites that desire to reach out to one of us and present the problems in that area.
Right. And like I said, they want peace in the residents as well. You know, they're the ones that I've spoken to, they don't want the constant foot traffic coming to their place, or the late night visitors or their neighbors pounding on their neighbor's door, but they can hear it because, you know, a lot of the housing communities are attached to each other. So a lot of loud parties, a lot of fights going on. So again, this is where a lot of our knowledge came from. So that's what I did first, was trying to build the trust of the communities. I think it went well. I think we have a good foundation for that now.
Well, I know there's been a couple of times I've been on a bike ride with you and people will flag you down. They know you by name. It's like, hey, Officer Hernandez, pull you to the side and, you know, provide you that tidbit of information. So it's obviously working.
It's working, yeah. And, you know, again, they do come. They don't want to, whether they want to make a 911 call, but if they see me, then they'll let me know. And of course, I'll do the follow-up if there is something to do a follow-up on. So next slide, please. So when I started this, these were some of the locations I felt that had the most problems. Again, drugs, as I mentioned earlier, squatters, drive-by shootings, constant domestics, harassment, a lot of foot traffic, you know.
Yeah.
So what I started to do is I would come in on a Monday and I would run the call logs for these places. Okay. And whatever I felt was a worthy call that public housing admin needed to know about, I would forward that up with the case number. And if they wanted to do a follow-up, they did their own follow-up and got a report if that's what they wanted. But Walnut Grove, Alpha by Lynn, Jardín Verde, which is Burley Court area of Idaho, Jardín Alegres, which is Bombert, same thing right next to Bombert, next to Burley Court on Idaho, and Tres Árboles. So, you know, for example, Walnut Grove, they had a residence that had at least 3-4 drive-by shootings at his residence. So, you know, what's going on there is a problem. Yeah, obviously something's going on. Something's not right there, you know. So again, patrol officers, we take the call and then, you know, we move on, because that's just, you know, how the call volume works on patrol. But I decided to look in further into this and what's causing this. So we're able to, with the help of public housing admin, is to remove these individuals. And once they were removed, it seems like night and day. The problem stopped. For the most part, not a whole lot of issues in that area. Overall for Jardín Verdes, again, you had a disabled female who was being taken advantage of by her brother. The brother pretty much forced his sister out of the residence. She was out of that residence for 3 months while the brother was selling drugs out of that residence, you know.
So when you say take advantage, you're saying like moved in there, like in a sense squatting? Is that what you're
squatting is what I'm going back to, yeah. So this individual, his sister, the sister was so afraid of her brother that she moved out for 3 months. Didn't tell nobody.
Okay.
The brother is squatting there selling drugs out of this apartment, and the foot traffic through there at night was phenomenal. And of course, this is information I gathered from the residents. After the brother was arrested on a warrant, the difference between the foot traffic from the time that he was arrested till now is almost obsolete. It's not even there, and that's by the residents. The residents tell me that, like, the foot traffic is almost literally stopped, So
going back to, we kind of got rid of the problem as far as getting this particular person evicted. What do we do with that person is evicted because now they're homeless?
So the person isn't evicted. So right now that individual who was the male, which is the brother, he wasn't on the lease to live there. So he was just removed. The sister still lives there, and she's working with public housing to either change the locks, maybe get relocated or something like that. So the problem was that the brother just wasn't on the lease. You have to, in order to live at these public housing areas, you have to be on the lease. Okay, if you're not on the lease, then you're a visitor. If you're a visitor, then you have certain limitations on what you can do there. You can't just invite friends over or have hangouts. You know what I mean? It has to go through the residence who it's assigned to. So the resident sister is still there. She's still there. She's working in public housing to get moved the last time I heard.
So then another question, I noticed these pictures, were they taken early morning or late night? What is the typical time frame once you're out here?
So the typical time frame is normally 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. These pictures were taken about 4 o'clock in the morning on my bike rides through the public housing community. And again, it's just to show that we are out there. They tell us, the community tells us what time things are happening. And I do my best to get out there around those times to see what I can see, and I can report that up to public housing and let them know what the community is telling me and what they're afraid of and whatnot.
Just a question real quick.
Yeah.
How many miles do you see you put on that bike?
It varies. I guess if I get a flat, maybe 5. If I don't, on a good day, about 16, 17 miles.
Okay.
But
a lot of free PT.
But it's an electrical bike, so let's not try to get too into it, Going back to the public housing here, Jardina Alegres, which is Bomber, another female who she was homeless at one time, decided to allow her homeless friends to start coming over, using the facilities, and at which point they started actually living on the property. They were setting up tents, they were setting up their cots and whatnot, living on these properties where, of course, nobody could see them, but they were actually in the property itself.
So this goes back to squatting.
Yes,
correct?
and again, squatting is when people are just coming onto the property. They have no right to be there, and they're trying to make it into a living situation. Which, again, public housing is private property, and you can't just walk onto the property and just start setting up tents.
It's not like a national park. You just go pitch a tent inside a camp, right?
Right. Yeah. No, this is actually private property, and there are rules and regulations. And of course, again, some of the places, and I got some photos, you'll see where it's hard for some individuals to see them where they're set up at unless you actually get out on foot and whatnot. So,
okay.
Tres Arbol is the same way over off of Ash and Mulberry. There is a lady there who has constant visitors, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and these visitors at some point they'll bring up stolen vehicles that we actually took reports on, just squatting in front of the residents, and again, these are the concerns that were being brought by some of the elderly community living there at the Southwoods. Is there's a lot of foot traffic coming through here, and they go to a certain address, and we don't know why. Again, which is why the bike rides occur in the morning, and whatnot.
So with that increased foot traffic, would you say it kind of, I guess, correlates with the whole increased crime, or is it just an inconvenience to what?
It could be an increase in crime. It could also be an inconvenience because, again, these people are allowed to have visitors come and visit, but there's a certain time that people normally stop by and visit. And again, me 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning is not a normal time for somebody to come to my house, but that's just me. Which is why we go and we check it out, So it's not hard evidence of a crime going on, but we are addressing those concerns, and the community will see us out there and see that we are working on their concerns. Okay. Next slide, please. So these are some of the things that I was telling you about earlier, some of the people that are just living on the property. So I mentioned Bonbert. The top picture there is the residents of one of these homeless ladies that got public housing assistance. As you can see, there's people just living on the property, tons of bikes. Just south of that flag there was a vacant residence where people set up tents in the back. So, I mean, if you can imagine this analogy community, 60, 70-year-old male or female, I mean, are they really going to go up to go address that? You know, I mean, this is things that they had concerns about, but they wouldn't bring it up because, again, as long as nobody bothers me and I just stay in my little house, which they don't like being cooped up because they want to be able to move around freely, but they can't because they feel threatened by this, you know.
Okay. So that vacant house, you said that house was vacant, is that correct?
Yes.
So my question to you is, if someone is found in there, what are they looking? What kind of like criminal like charge? What is that?
So at that point, I'd have to deal with public housing and see if they're willing to pursue charges for, at this point, just trespassing. Just trespassing, because the resident is vacant, but they are technically on private property. Public housing is private property, and each is given a section to the resident once they are given public housing. Okay. The bottom picture here, as you can see, is a resident. They had people squatting, living on the side of his residence. An elderly female didn't know these people were there. There was about 2 or 3 people camping back here, and they've been there for 2 or 3 months. I have no clue, but I don't know if you can see it there, but there's a headstone. They managed to bring a headstone from the cemetery there, stolen bikes, just a bunch of property. And again, the individual who lived here had no idea this was going on there because he's wheelchair bound, and he had no clue people were living on the side of his residence.
So I'm seeing some wires and stuff. Were they utilizing electricity from that property?
No. So what they do a lot of times is they will find copper somehow, whether it's stealing or they go to construction sites and they'll strip the insulation off the copper, go sell the copper, and from what I've seen, purchase narcotics with it. So, and the narcotics that right now is currently on the streets is blues, which is fentanyl pills, little small pills of fentanyl. That's kind of a hot topic right now. So, but yeah, that's just what I've seen when I first started the project. Are people just, as you can see, just kind of making themselves comfortable on public housing property. Next slide, please. So what has been gained? So what has been gained from this relationship with public housing, the residents of these public housing communities? Again, we're assisting residents who want to live in a healthy environment. You know, they want to be able to let their kids go out with, you know, maybe not being harassed by the homeless people or people just wandering through the property. You know, quality of life has improved. Like I said, that gentleman that we arrested where the sister was kicked out for 3 months, just around that area, I constantly get people telling me that it has improved night and day, the amount of foot traffic that has stopped going through that area. So, which, you know, in my opinion, is the win, you know.
So when you report to housing authority, what is the process?
So what I do is I email public housing every day, because like I said, I walk here, I drive here, or I ride my bike every day, and I'll email them every single day what I gather. With that, I'll also send pictures. As you can see, I take a ton of pictures, and I will send pictures and videos of what I see. And the response to me is pretty good. I'll normally get a response the next day, and they'll normally tell me, we'll issue a yard violation, or we'll look further into it, or kind of like that gentleman right there that had those people living next to his residence that he knew nothing about. She said, we'll head over there, trespass these people for us, and then we'll clean up the property for him and maybe have him relocated, because obviously he had no clue what was going on. But they're normally pretty good about responding and letting me know what's going to happen as far as what route they're going to take. And again, I don't give my opinion on what should happen. I just give the information and they go off of their own
Just observe
scale.
report.
Exactly, that's it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we got a question from the chat.
Yeah.
What is, I guess, their follow-up?
Who's follow-up? Public housing?
Yes, public housing.
So their follow-up is they will make an appointment, because they have to have an appointment, give these residents time that they're gonna let them know that they're gonna show up. So we'll be here for this, a yard violation or a residence check or whatever it may be. They'll give them time to let them know, hey, we're gonna show up and do this check. They'll let them know that there's been concerns that have been brought up. And they always use the photographs that I've sent to them as evidence to show that this is what evidence has been taken in front of your residents, such as the people just living there. We want to know why this is going on. And then from there, they'll make the determination on what it is they're going to do and stuff like that. So that is happening a whole lot faster than before when they didn't know what was going on. So obviously, with me being eyes on the ground, they can get on that property within a week or two and address the situation a whole lot quicker.
So it sounds like you expedited the whole process between the reportee and administration.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's a good, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because now the residents aren't afraid to report stuff, and if something doesn't happen within a month or two, then they just kind of forget about it and think nothing is going to happen. So again, with that being said, they've also brought back the public housing board members. So these are board members where the public housing community can actually report violations to them, and they'll report that up to admin, public housing admin. So they know that there's a quick time response on this. So that's why they brought back the public housing board members, which is, again, awesome for the resident himself, With that being said, removing people isn't our goal, is to improve quality of life, but they have removed numerous people across the public housing community. Some of these evictions have even gone as far as them being blacklisted. Basically, they can no longer be receiving assistance from public housing. And again, that's not our goal. Our goal is to improve quality of life. And unfortunately, if it gets to this situation, the residents never actually cleaned up their act after they've been written up numerous times. And again, building the relationship with the community that many thought were unapproachable or had to disdain for law enforcement, So again, like you said, these people know me by name. I'll be out on the bike, they'll say Hernandez or Officer Hernandez, and I'll go around and address their situation or address their concerns and tell them, and I'll ask them if they want me to address their concern with public housing. That way they're aware of it. And if they say yeah, then I'll email public housing, let them know what concern is brought to me by that resident, and then I'll try to work it on my end as far as the criminal aspect goes. So yeah, and again, building the relationship between public housing, admin, and law enforcement. Now that has been built, again, they don't have to wait 2-3 months to find out that a drive-by shooting happened or violent domestic happened. Now they can hear from a community member, or I come in on Monday and I let them know this is what happened, and then they can take the appropriate actions to do whatever it is they got to do on their end.
Once again, very proactive approach to addressing community problems and concerns. So, okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
A lot of work. 2 years, right?
2.5, almost 2.5 years. Yeah, it's been a long pot project.
So, with that being said, do you ever see like a stopping point?
I do. And I see a stopping point as far as what I see going on in different communities. I feel that once certain residents are removed from certain communities, I feel that at that point, the pot project can be closed, but we can still continue our monitoring of the residents by maybe going through once a day and still keeping admin or public housing admin aware of what's going on with the call log that I can still present to them as far as what's going on. But it'll be an ongoing thing because, again, you don't know who's moving in. You don't know who's coming in, what problems they're going to bring. And if it continues, I would hope that with the cleanup that we're doing now, that public housing admin can address it a whole lot quicker than just wait. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
well, Officer Hernandez, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And, your dedication to the department. So,
appreciate it.
Nobody go away. We'll be right back with Officer Charlie Velasco with some outgoing statements.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming back, and thank you to Officer Felipe Hernandez for taking the time to really share a little bit about himself, right?
Yes.
We here in community outreach, we have the time and we have the privilege to pursue things that we are passionate about, right? So
Agreed.
obviously this is something that came to Officer Felipe's mind and heart. He took the time and did a long-term project. That is just one of the wonderful officers that we have here in community outreach. Each officer, to include Officer Paulos, takes the time to do a project, and we all come together and help them out whenever we can and whenever we need. Please, I want to encourage everyone to have questions. If you have them, put them in the chat. We can answer them here live. If you want to hear about something, follow-up question or answer, please talk to us directly in a direct message. But also, Paulo, what do you want to tell people about future coming Bridging the Badge initiatives?
I think it's going to be very informative. Like I said, this is a great platform to kind of get out to the public what we do and what we can do. And also just to have a better relationship with the public. You know, just like I said, they're a great source of knowledge. They know what's going on in the community. So a lot of stuff that maybe we don't pay attention, we don't know about immediately, but that's the whole concept of community outreach, is to reach out to these communities that are affected with high crime and figure out what the underlying issues, because you know, for the most part, it's usually tied in to some sort of like narcotics, some social economical issue or something like that. So that's our job, is to figure that out and address it. So
Yes, and please, if you have any interest in presenting, any ideas that we should present on, go ahead and send us an email, put it in the chat. We're going to be doing these monthly, and the possibilities are endless. Public safety is a community sport, and we can't do it without you. So please, if you missed it or you logged in late, this is recorded. Where can they find it, Officer Bones?
I believe we should be putting a link up here immediately after this presentation. So stay tuned for that. And I believe our next Bridging the Badge is going to be...
It's going to be Wednesday, October 18th, 2023. Okay, and the presentation is going to be by people in the DEA's office. They're going to have the presentation, One Pill Can Kill. So please log in with us. If you want to be added to an emailing list so you don't miss any Bridging the Badge meetings, go ahead and email communityoutreach@lascruces.gov. We're also going to put it at the end of this presentation. If you want to share this meeting itself and future Bridging the Badge meetings, they'll all be uploaded to City of Las Cruces YouTube page. So thank you very much. Thank you, Las Cruces, and tune in next month for the next meeting.